Yes. We'll call it meeting to order with a roll call vote. Alderman Peterson, how do you vote?
Here.
Alderman Brown, how do you vote?
Present.
And the chair votes present also. Let the record show that Alderman Caesar is not here today. The second item on the agenda, setting of the agenda. This is the opportunity for anyone who wishes to change something on the agenda or remove something, then they can do it at this particular time. If we have no changes to the agenda, then I'll entertain a motion to accept the agenda as presented.
So moved, Chair.
Second.
Proper motion is second. Let's do a roll call vote on that also. Alderman Peterson, how do you vote?
Yes.
Alderman Brown, how do you vote?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes on that also. Citizen comments. I only see staff here, so we probably don't have any citizen comments. I'll go then to approval of minutes, consideration of the approval of minutes for April the 13th, 2026. Any questions or deletions? If not,
Nothing except that I've forgotten when, because I was looking at minutes from several things. The ones that have Pearl Bransford's name on it, they have it misspelled. It's Pearlene, not INE. And it may not have been in this, it may have been in something else that I've looked at, but it's several times, but it definitely.
Okay, thank you.
any other questions or comments on the agenda? I'll entertain a motion.
Wait, is this the?
Move to
minutes?
approve.
Is this- Second?
Proper motion and a second. Let's do a roll call vote on that. Alderman Peterson, how do you vote?
Yes.
Alderman Brown, how do you vote?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes on that also. I would make one comment before we get too far started. There may not be, some of you may not be online. I mean, I'm still not online, but we do have our agendas printed in front of us. The next item on the agenda is item number 3, and that's consideration of procurement award to Pinnacle Financial Partners of Nashville, Tennessee for comprehensive banking services, including general banking and lockbox processing proceedings, in the estimated annual amount of $1,023,044.64 for interest earnings on the city's average collected balances and $39,782.64 for fees for the required service for a term of award for both the finance department as well as the billing and licensing department. Purchase order procurement solicitation number 2026-014, contract number 2026-0159. Margaret, you're up.
Yes, sir. It has been 4 years since we last went out for RFP for our comprehensive banking services. So per state law, we have to go every 4 years. But I want to, before I get into all that, you will see an extra name down here under sponsors named Wesley Wright. He is with us today. He is our new purchasing manager. He's been a huge asset to the city over the last 30 days. So he's very new, but I wanted to welcome Wesley
Do
officially.
you need to have Wesley come up?
Well, he will actually be with us presenting next month.
Okay,
So I've
that'll
already
work.
put him to work. But no, we did go out for bid. We had several, I think it was like 9 bids for comprehensive banking services. After a thorough review, we are requesting that y'all approve, recommend to the full board for approval of the contract with Pinnacle, who is our incumbent.
We do need a motion on that for the recommendation. Okay, everyone has heard what Margaret's presented. I'll entertain a motion that we present this item to the full board with the committee's recommendation.
Move that we present it to the board with the committee's recommendation.
Proper motion, a second.
Second.
Let's do a roll call vote on that. Alderman Peterson, how do you vote?
Yes.
Alderman Brown, how do you vote?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes on that also. Let's go to item 4 then, which is consideration of draft ordinance 2026-09, an ordinance to amend the budget of the city of Franklin for fiscal year 2025-2026. Michael or Eric, either one, whichever one of you want to start it off.
I'll do that, Mr. Chairman. Good evening. or good evening, good afternoon. It's such a beautiful day. I don't even know when during the day it is. Michael Walters Young, your Chief Budget and Performance Officer. Welcome to the end of the road. This is your budget decision-making and recommending day here at Budget and Finance Committee. Before we can begin going down the 8 individual action items you will have in the 27 recommendation, we need to amend the 26 budget. So ordinance 2026-09 does exactly that. There are 3 amendments within this ordinance. They pertain to operations and equipment increases, land acquisitions, and accounting corrections. As we do, we will go by fund. There are 6 funds being amended by ordinance 2026-09. The general fund sees an increase net of revenues of $2.26 million. Large items included in this are the local option sales tax. We are recommending an increase in the budgeted amount of nearly $1.9 million. This is pretty traditional, thankfully. We always budget conservatively. You will hear that exact line come out of the mouth of the city administrator in about 8 minutes pertaining to fiscal 27. But we have seen through 8 months of the fiscal year, year-over-year collections of 5.5%. And so this is recognizing both the cash we have in hand and the trend that we will be at by June 30th. You see a series of decreases: city tax relief, property tax, building permits, wholesale liquor tax. In terms of permits and liquor tax, it's simply, we haven't seen the activity that we had anticipated in either of those. The property tax rolls that were billed were slightly less than the amount that we had budgeted. And city tax relief is a nominal amount, but that amount was not actually budgeted at the beginning of the year. It is for an appropriate amount in fiscal 27. Increases also include franchise fees, court fees, interest income, and I'll draw your attention to the bottom 2, called performance bonds. We have started the process of calling performance bonds on various developments which simply have not fully completed their tasks. These generally are in arrears for quite a few many years because we actually do not want to go through the process of calling the performance bond and completing the work themselves, but that's why we have the surety, because it assures that the work can be completed. And so we are doing that. There's a total of $670,000 in this budget via called performance bonds. And then finally, the use of fund balance of $269,443 is the balance of the purchase of the amount of Pearline and Bransford Park from the Water Management Fund to Phase 1 of the Pearl. That was $2.5 million in the last amendment. The total amount comes to $2,700,669,443. Expenses, because the general fund must always be in balance, are also an increase of $2.262 million. Operational equipment and equipment increases are the largest amount of that, nearly $1.87 million. Almost $1 million are increases in personnel. This, in large part, accounts for 2 items. Number 1, vacancy adjustments. If you remember, we use a vacancy adjustment as a planning tool of 3.5% per year per departmental budget. And not every budget has a vacancy, which is a good thing. We average a healthy degree of turnover, but if that vacancy is not realized, we have to move money because there are people that need to be paid. The other is we had a fair number of retirements this year, and so the retirement payouts are budgeted within general expenses and not in the departments because you never know exactly who's going to retire when, and so these increases are designed to accommodate those payouts. The second part, nearly $900,000, is most of it's completing that called performance bonds that I referred to a moment ago, as well as several $100,000 in various facilities maintenance throughout our various properties in the city, and for the extra costs incurred from the January ICE event. Some of that is eligible for reimbursement, but that will be coming later and will not be received by June 30th. The expenses were incurred in this fiscal year. If we receive revenues, they will be accounted for in the year which they are received. Yes, sir.
I was going to ask, I think you may have just answered it, but what is the turn from calling those bonds? What is the, sorry, Casey. What is the turn on doing the actual work that has not been completed? In other words, incurring the expense from the revenue that we take in on the bonds that we call.
It
Depend-
That almost sounded immediate, but I doubt that it is that.
No, but when we've gotten to this point and we've called the bonds and we've received the money, we go out and immediately contract to get that work done. So is it instantaneous? No. The duration between calling the bond, or the duration between the time when the bond is actually issued and the project is quote unquote not completed and when we call the bonds has historically been a longer period of time because we want the private developer to finish the activity. So years have gone by in some cases. But I would say probably within 1 to 2 months of starting that process, we are out collecting bids to try to do that work. Funding of capital projects or land acquisition, like I said, the balance of purchasing the Pearl for the general fund. And then third is literally a catch-all. It's mainly accounting corrections, an increase of $119,000. We are moving the $1 million that we budgeted for the purchase of a new finance enterprise resource platform or ERP system to replace the general ledger from finance to capital projects. Therefore, that money can be spent over next year in fiscal '28 and won't revert back to the general fund. As well as a series of accounting shifts. There are some items which we budgeted in capital because we thought they were going to be over 50, and a couple of vehicles were under. And so there's a lot of sort of moving parts and pieces, as well as a few cost increases to account for. In the sanitation fund, similar result. We have equipment increases of $67,000. Actually, that's not equipment increases. I apologize. We have vacancy adjustments in the tune of $50,000 and $20,000 in operations for the maintenance of our detention pond at Century Court, and then a reallocation of equipment, fleet vehicles. Those are vehicles that were capital items, but actually are just under $50,000, so they were moved into operations. Road impact funds, you see an increase of $5.5 million. That is to make sure that we have enough budgeted for offsets. If you remember a couple of months ago, we presented to you a letter that we received from the state saying we slightly overspent that fund. We're not going to do that again this year. So this ensures that there's sufficient balance to, if there are any development agreements and requests for offset agreements in the next 45 days, we have sufficient balance to cover that. We do not plan on spending $5.5 million necessarily before June 30th. But those offset agreements are out there. Transit fund sees an increase of revenues and expenses, $450,000 in revenues and $400,000 in expenses. These are both trending higher. The amount of operating support from federal and state grants has been higher than we originally budgeted this year and is more on line with what the transit fund is recommending for fiscal '27. Capital projects is simply a pass-through, $1 million in and $1 million out to expenses. And finally, in the water management fund, you have the sale of the Pearl, the receipt of that money for $269,000, and the sale of surplus assets of $62,000. That sale of surplus assets was used to buy a new mini excavator for the water plant and $70,000 in contractual services with LDA Consulting for continued development and design of the south plant. Your fund balance changes are on the screen. General fund is will be a decrease of $269,443. Sanitation, a decrease of $67,000. Road impact, a decrease of $5.5 million. Transit, an increase of $50,000. Capital projects is no change. And the water management fund sees an increase of $200,000. That is the final amendment because we're all out of time in fiscal '26 for fiscal '26. Happy to stand for any questions.
Any questions of Michael? All right, if there's no questions, let's go to item 6. It says-
We will need a vote
You do-
to
okay.
recommend that to the full board. In fact, we will need a vote to
Do we
recommend
need, on all of these?
everything until item 13 to the full board.
So our motion would be to recommend this ordinance to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen.
Proper motion second, all in favor. Well, I better do a roll call vote on this one. Roll call vote. Alderman Peterson, how do you vote?
Yes.
Alderman Brown, how do you vote?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes on this also. Okay, let's go to item 6 then, consideration of draft ordinance 2026-11, an ordinance of the city of,
We're on item 5.
huh?
We're on item 5.
This is
We're on
five
that,
then.
okay. Let's go back to 5 then. Consideration of draft ordinance 2026-10, an ordinance of the city of Franklin, Tennessee, adopting a budget for the fiscal year 2026-2027, providing an effective date. Eric?
It is my turn. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair and members of the Budget and Finance Committee. This is what we've been working towards all year in terms of delivering to you a recommended budget. I provided that to the entire board last Friday, and it's our opportunity to present this publicly for the first time this afternoon. And it's an honor to bring this to you, a work plan and the financial capacity to support it for the fiscal year ahead. Starts July 1 of 2026 and runs through June 30 of 2027. It's our fiscal 27 budget that we present today. So we'll walk through that. What I'll give you today is an overview of the budget. We'll touch on the general fund, the components of that, other funds, hit some highlights there, and give you a good sense of what we are proposing to you in the year ahead. When we set this budget up, you adopted and the board adopted a series of budget goals, but they really focus on delivering on high-quality services, being prepared for the future, and being a highly competitive community, being at the best level we can be at to serve our community and be a place that people choose to live and build their lives, both whether it's their family or their businesses, and to live into your vision to be America's finest hometown, driven by excellence, balancing preservation and progress. So let's get to the numbers. The whole budget in terms of all funds is at $73.4 million. That's an increase over the current year budget of about 2.7%. The general fund, which is the core of our services to the community, is at $134.3 million. That's an increase of 1.8% compared to the current year's budget. So we're really at or below inflationary rates when you look at what we're facing today. So it's a pretty straightforward budget. As I shared with you each individually, as we talked about this budget, you made a lot of significant policy decisions last year in formulating the fiscal 26 budget. You set a new tax rate. You established a reinvigorated Invest Franklin, which is the backbone of our capital investment program. You updated the entire compensation plan for the city, setting a higher target in terms of our comparison to the market. So you did a lot of big, heavy lifting last year, and so we're really continuing that momentum and those key decisions in the budget that I present to you today. So some key highlights: it is a balanced budget, structurally balanced in terms of ongoing revenues and ongoing expenses, but the overall budget is balanced as well. We fully comply with your policies, debt and fund reserve policy, and we maintain key service levels and enhance many of them across the entire suite of city functions. The budget itself is founded on a maintained property tax rate at just around 29.6 cents per $100 of assessed valuation, so it remains unchanged. That is one of the lowest property tax rates in the state of Tennessee, especially when you look at cities our size. We continue the key investments that Invest Franklin 2.0 provided, the additional capacity that you approved last year, both for operations and for our key infrastructure investments, primarily focused on transportation. When we look at the budget itself, you see general pay increases for our team members at a base of 2.5%, and then a second component that is based on performance that ranges anywhere from 0.5% to 2.5%. So folks, depending on their performance, will receive anywhere between 3% or 5% in terms of general pay increase. Again, the compensation plan was fully reviewed and updated a year ago with the target of being in the 90th percentile or better compared to the market. In terms of benefits, there is an adjustment to health insurance premiums. This is the first adjustment in the general premium in 4 years, and it's a 2.5% increase. That is, I feel really good about that when you look at what else is going on in the health insurance market. A few weeks ago, some of us attended the Tennessee City Management Association meeting, and the state presented where they are with their health insurance program, and they were projecting a 7% increase in their insurance premiums. So we're obviously significantly better than that. We did also increase out-of-pocket maximums for the first time since 2008, or 2014, apologize. And that's a $500 increase on that out-of-pocket maximum for single coverage and a $1,000 increase for out-of-pocket maximum for family coverage. To put that in a little bit of context, currently only about 18%, 18% of our covered lives reach that out-of-pocket maximum within the health insurance program today. So that does not affect a huge number of our folks. Next, let's talk about where we've added positions. Again, the additional capacity that you provided in this year's budget that pulls into 2027. It provides the opportunity to expand some key areas in terms of service level and capacity. We are adding 4 positions in the police department, 3 officers, patrol officers, and a sergeant in training. So 4 of your 8 new positions are in the police department. We are restoring the contract specialist position. It had previously been in administration. It's been vacant for about 3 or 4 years, and now it will be repositioned in the finance department, especially to help us with our citywide purchasing efforts as well. We also are adding an organizational development specialist position. We currently only have 1 person working in that space, and one of your strategic goals focuses on organizational health, so we feel we need more capacity there. We are also restoring 2 vacant positions in our Parks and Recreation Department, 2 grounds workers that help us with additional capacity needs as we bring on additional park facilities that we've already brought on this year, but we also expect to bring on the northern portion of Pearl Park, the more passive park area that has Robinson Lake and hiking trails. We expect to add that by the end of this calendar year, so we need some additional capacity there. While it's not new positions, it is a series of promotions and adjustments in terms of the structure in the fire department that helps support our district captain structure program that provides additional key leadership on the day-to-day, but also on the response side with the establishment of a district captain position. We do that without adding any positions, but we do adjust and have a chain of promotions that allow us to establish that. And we did eliminate 1 full-time position in administration. So you have a net add of 7 full-time positions across the general fund. All right, so looking at some other key highlights in the budget itself, turning to sanitation and environmental services, that is its own separate fund and separate operations. We've worked hard to make that a fully self-sufficient fund over the last several years, and that continues. We do, as we came to you a couple months ago as a full board, we looked at a cost of service study update, and we are proposing an updated 5-year plan, but would ask you to adopt rates for the next 2 fiscal years. Fiscal 27, which is what you're considering today, a $1 per month increase, so you'd go from $33 a month to $34 a month in fiscal 27. We're also increasing the commercial tip fee at our transfer station from $70 a ton to $75 a ton. And again, this is in line with your 5-year plan that would keep this as a self-sufficient operation. The stormwater fund is also seeing its first rate increase since 2018. It's a relatively modest increase for the vast majority of our residential fee payers. They will see an increase of just under $21 for the entire year for stormwater services. One of the things we continue to upgrade within our budget is to not just talk about the dollars we spend, but the services we deliver, and to compare ourselves and measure ourselves against key objectives. And we have a little different description of what we have. Fit 5, each department has 5 key measures that they've identified. These are Franklin indicator tracking, correct? And there are 5 of them per department. So we've asked departments to dig in and say, what are really meaningful measures? And you'll see those throughout the budget. They track and tie back in to the updated strategic plan, Franklin Forward. So we want to provide those key measures clearly to our citizens so they see not just what we're spending, but what we're delivering in terms of services and performance. There are a series of really three additional fee increases across all budgets. We have an adjustment to our plan review fees. You'll see us adjusting the non-residential fee structure, and the fire protection and residential plan fees are established separately or specifically within that structure. This helps us recover a portion of the cost it takes to accept, review, and respond to plans that are submitted to our building and neighborhood services and our development services team. In sanitation, I talked about that already. You'll see we've got, in the, back on that, the plan review fees, those go into effect July 1 of this year. The sanitation and stormwater fees that I described before, those go into effect January 1 of 27. And you had previously approved in last year's budget 2 years of rates for water management, for water and sanitary sewer and the reclaim system. Again, those are previously approved, but you will see an adjustment within those rates, 5% in water, 6% in wastewater, effective, again, January 1, 2027. You'll see our organizational structure. It is unchanged from the current year. You'll see that we've got our various departments and the structure there, obviously ultimately accountable to you and to the citizenry. So that continues on. Within the general fund, we'll roll through some high-level numbers and structural description here. The revenue within the general fund, just over $134 million. You'll see just under 53% of that comes from our portion of local option sales tax that comes to city government. Of course, an equal amount of local option sales tax goes to public schools. That goes to Williamson County and Franklin Special School District. You'll also see the other key revenues fairly equally divided between our state shared revenue tax, which comes back to the city. It is state sales tax and other consumption taxes collected at the state level back to cities based on population. And then you see the portion of property tax, after we've paid our debt service, comes into the general fund to help support operations. And then there's a series of fees and use taxes that make up the balance of the general fund budget. Looked at another way, we always look at this in terms of consumption versus other tax components, and consumption is just under 72%. So that's the combination of our sales tax, the shared taxes, and the other consumption taxes that we have, like alcohol tax, et cetera. And so that just gives you a sense that we're pretty dependent on economic activity. A lot of other cities across Tennessee have a higher level of dependency on property tax. We are more dependent on consumption taxes like local option sales tax. So where do we spend those dollars? When you look at it from a functional area, major program area, nearly 44% is in the public safety realm, police and fire. And then you see a pretty equal distribution among public works, which excludes water management and sanitation, but the other functions in public works, streets and parks. You also see our community and economic development. You see finance and administration and other key administrative support areas. So that makes up the balance of that from the functional area. When you look at it by expense category, nearly 70% is personnel costs. So we serve the community through our people. So salary and benefits makes up nearly 70% of the budget when you look at it that way. And then the balance is primarily in operations, which is supplies, material, contracts there. And then we have a small portion that is operational capital. That is not the capital investment program. That is equipment that fits that definition there. When you look at our performance year to year, you see consistently us living within our means. We have contributed every year that you see in this performance window to our reserves. Even in the midst of COVID, we managed to put a little bit into our reserves. This helps provide that buffer should the economy take a downturn and consumption taxes dip. We have the capacity to absorb that, and that provides continuity of service to the community overall. You see, again, strong positioning in terms of the reserve itself in the 70% range as we close out this fiscal year, and projecting that forward at a similar level at the end of fiscal 27. Right, so just an overview summary of what we presented to you. We continue to support and the board guidance and leadership, decisive leadership that provided last year to identify additional capacity for operations and for capital investment. We also have, and we're able to announce on Tuesday, the fact that the widening of Mack Hatcher from 2 to 4 lanes is included in the state's 10-year plan. It's now about 6 years out from commencing construction, but we are hopeful that that might possibly move up earlier. We did get word that the state has put in an additional $15 million, raising the state contribution to $40 million to that $100 million project. The city has pledged $50 million, so we're just $10 million away from that final number. We think we're definitely in the home stretch there. We're working with the MPO, the Metropolitan Planning Organization, to identify some additional funding opportunity through them, and we'll continue to work with the state of Tennessee to fill that gap as well. Let me just comment broadly about the capital investment program. It's not really the subject of this budget today, but it is the backbone of that funding comes from what you identified in Invest Franklin, both what we did in 2016, but what we refreshed last year. It is the foundation of a $458 million capital investment program. That 458 does not include the $100 million going in to Mack Hatcher widening. So really, when we fold that in, we are at $558 million. Over 80% of that is in the transportation realm. So what we hear most from people is traffic and capacity, and we're putting our dollars right there. It is a fiscally conservative plan with 66%, 2/3 of it coming from cash resources. So those impact fees that you collect, the additional capacity that we have in reserves, the other development-related funds that are collected help provide cash funding so that we're not overly burdening ourselves with debt. Then 34% of it is funded through debt capacity. So that's just a really important piece to step back. The board, the city has shown leadership in stepping up and identifying capacity to meet those key needs. That Mack Hatcher partnership is one of only 9 in the entire state of Tennessee and is the single largest partnership project that the Tennessee Department of Transportation is funding. So Franklin stepped up, showed leadership, and the state is meeting us almost halfway. And we're going to get them halfway by the time we're ready to break ground on Mack
That's
Hatcher.
because we put
Widening.
so much money in it.
Yes, it is
It's the
because
only
we
way.
stepped
That was
up.
the only way.
It is absolutely true. So I just wanted to take a moment to talk about how important that is in terms of meeting future needs. And then the budget overall, we do provide, and Invest Franklin was a key part of this too, targeted staff increases, and we've prioritized essential services and operational excellence through that work. And again, your reserves are healthy and strong as we move forward. So I'll walk through a couple key components in the general fund. Over the next several slides, you see the summary there of all the revenue sources that make it happen. Again, under 2% growth in that budget. So we are staying definitely on the conservative side in terms of what we're projecting and how we're allocating resources as we move forward. Local option sales tax, again, nearly 53% of your total general fund revenue. It's at $70.9 million. We're projecting on the conservative side about a 2.8% growth over the amended fiscal 26 budget that Michael just talked to you about a little bit ago. And it continues to be an incredibly important part of funding our operations and maintaining one of the lowest property tax rates in the state of Tennessee. The next slide just shows you that composition of property tax versus sales tax. You see it's roughly at a 2-to-1 or a little higher than 2-to-1 ratio, sales tax to property tax. Many other communities across the state are the inverse of that. The property tax is a lot of times maybe 2 times or significantly higher at least than the sales tax component. And then you look at that property tax rate, which generates around $33 million in total. You pay about $14 million in debt service. You take that off the top of your most stable revenue source to pay that debt obligation. We sweeten the pot in the street aid fund by adding over $1.5 million of additional capacity there to do more with neighborhood streets. And then that leaves you with $17.6 million
to fund general fund operations from the property tax source. The other general fund resource that is really one of our top three, our number two in terms of going right into operations is state shared tax. Again, that is generated back out to cities across the state based on your population on a per capita basis. And the state has made some modifications in that in the last year or so to make that based on population projections coming out of the University of Tennessee. And so we don't have to go back and do special censuses on a periodic basis to make sure we're getting our fair share. So that's a welcome change. Some other key revenue sources, I'll just touch on them quickly. The alcohol consumption tax, we have a liquor by the drink tax that the city gets revenue from. That's at 5.8 million, showing about a 4% increase there. Building permits, we're just under 2.7 million in activity there, shows a healthy growth there. I think we may have underprojected that a little bit in this year as well. Grants, there's a decrease there. That sort of goes with the flow of when we get one-time grant money, largely in the transportation realm, so you see a dip there. And we are also seeing a decrease in our investment income or interest income in the general fund, just some lower earnings environment, and we're starting to spend some of the cash towards capital investment projects as we're investing those dollars there. You see the reserves we talked about right around the 70% range in terms of where we'll finish this year, and we'll be pretty close to that exact same place we project a year from now. Again, very healthy. You're well above your reserves, your reserve projection in your policy. You can use anything above 45% to be a cash source for capital investment. So that's a key portion there. The next slide just shows you the specific numbers that I showed you in a graphic representation earlier in terms of the different components from a expense category and then the broader category of personnel, operations, and capital. One of the key components that you fund, and it is an important element, is our pension plan. We have a closed pension program, and that is at about $12 million in fiscal '27. That's $1 million increase over the current budget, so that's around an 8% bump there. The open program, which is a TCRS program, it is the legacy program and is the most generous version of TCRS, is just under 8% in terms of a component of salary there, so a slight growth there from where we are today. And then the pension collectively is about 20.5% of total payroll in terms of your pension obligations. All right, when you look at appropriations, we do provide funding to a series of outside agencies, both as partners to city operations, but also important community investments. That's really closely holding the line to where we are today, just over $19,000 of dollar increase. That includes a 2.6% across the board inflationary increase to agencies. There are no new agencies funded in the proposed budget. So I'll walk through some key components in the all funds budget. Again, it is up 2.7% over where we are today, $273.4 million. A theme I think you'll see there driving that increase is we're starting to draw on some key cash funding resources, whether it's road impact or facilities tax or hotel motel, to help fund key capital investment projects. So let's touch on stormwater. We talked about that already. It actually sees a decrease of 16.9% compared to this year's budget. We had a large equipment purchase within this smaller fund in this fiscal year, so that's why you see a little bit of a dip. Again, the first rate increase since 2018, and it's roughly just under $21 annually cost to most of our residential customers there. Sanitation also sees an increase there at just under 8%, $14.4 million in total. And that is for '27, a $1 per month increase from $33 to $34. This is consistent with a 5-year rate plan, which really alternates $1 1 year per month, and then the next year a $2 per month increase. So we would anticipate and would ask you to adopt a second year of rates moving from $34 to $36 for fiscal '28 when you're acting on this budget as well. This does also include additional costs at the commercial tip fee at the transfer station, moving from $70 to $75 in fiscal '27, and then moving from $75 to $77.50 per ton in fiscal '28. All right, hotel motel, this is the first full year at 5% at the city's rate. We moved that this spring from 4% to 5% to go to our maximum statutory amount for hotel motel tax. You do see some significant dollars going out the door in terms of investment in some projects. We continue our ongoing support of the Convention and Visitors Bureau at just over $1.3 million. There's debt service that's funded through the hotel motel tax for the acquisition of Eastern Flank, where we sit today, and for Harlansdale. That debt will retire in 2032. So we're starting to get in the home stretch of where we would retire the debt for the acquisition of those two important park properties. We are also funding 50% of the downtown parking study and the downtown traffic study. The city's portion of the conversion of 2 baseball fields in partnership with Franklin Baseball Club at Jim Warren is also funded. That's approximately a $1.3 million total project, with Franklin Baseball Club funding $600,000 of it. We are also funding a sports economic assessment plan for the Parks and Recreation Department. This would look at how we best use our facilities to meet emerging needs within the park system, both for our residents, but also from a business standpoint. Where can we host tournaments, attract visitors, and how do we adjust maybe some of our offerings to better match the market and the demands today? We also have the final payment or contribution that the city will make towards the Merrill Williams home, the African American Heritage Society restoration project of that historic home. You've contributed $50,000 each of the last 2 years, and this would be a third and final payment of $25,000 towards that project. And then there's $4 million coming out of Hotel Motel to help support the updates and improvements, enhancements at Liberty Park. That's also met with $1.9 million coming from parkland dedication from that quadrant. So you've got almost $6 million funded entirely by cash through Hotel Motel and parkland dedication. Within the development funds, again, we're very conservative in what we project and draw from those funds, both in terms of what we realize coming in from the development side, but we do see some significant dollars going out the door in terms of cash and cash investments that we see going into projects in fiscal '27, part of the 10-year capital plan. $5 million going into McEwen, both primarily in McEwen 4, what's under construction now, which is 2 years away from completion. But there's also some dollars setting the table for McEwen 5, which will be going further east and is a partnership funded with the city of Brentwood. So we want to be ready for that to start pretty quickly, almost immediately after we complete McEwen Phase 4. We've got $5.7 million going into Pearl Park, and especially the Robinson Lake component, which will open by the end of this calendar year. We've got $1 million going into from the county facilities tax fund to fund design work for the intersection improvement near Centennial High School. That's the Mallory, Liberty, North Royal Oaks intersection. And then I talked already about parkland dedication funds going into Liberty Park. Water management, it's a fairly straightforward budget. It's in total with all 3 components at $50.6 million. You've got $19.4 million on the drinking water side, $30.5 million on the sanitary sewer or water reclamation side, and $650,000 in the reclaimed water system. So within that, it includes rates that were approved a year ago to go into effect January 1 of '27, 5% on the water side, 6% on the sewer side. And this again is consistent with long-term rate plans that the board looked at about a year or so ago. We see a little bit of decline in debt service, but there's still a significant portion funding the $119 million state revolving loan fund that supported the upgrade and expansion of the existing water reclamation facility that we've completed a couple years ago. Again, we continue to track carefully our debt service coverage ratio for those borrowings, and are projecting at about 1.69, with the requirement being 1.25 in the budget ahead of us. There is some key components we're allocating costs in fiscal '27 related to the repair of large diameter fiberglass pipe. You approved on Tuesday some additional engineering services, or talked about on Tuesday some additional engineering services to make sure we're systematically addressing those pipe repairs across the whole system. So the budget overall, it keeps us in a strong competitive position and delivers high-quality services to our citizens. It's focused on balancing growth and high-quality services. Again, supporting that key capital investment program of $458 million, 82% of which is invested in transportation improvements. And you've got strong reserves as you finish out the year. I just want to take a moment to thank our team. This is absolutely a team effort across the whole organization. The Budget and Performance Office, which is here today, most of which are here today. Appreciate all their work throughout the year to make sure we're working well with our departments and they're using their budgets effectively. The Assistant City Administrators play a key role working with me, the department directors, our Human Resources Department, and making sure positions are adequately projected and incorporated in the budget. And I'm proud to present this budget for your consideration today and take any questions that you might have. And thank you for your dedicated work. This committee works diligently, starting in December, January, February, March, April, to hear from departments and patiently take in all the information, the important decisions that face our departments, their hopes and dreams to help serve the community in the most effective way they can. And we appreciate the wisdom that you provide us as we consider this. And I'm proud to recommend this budget to you today. Thank you.
Well, fellow committee members, any questions of either Eric or Michael?
Well, first, you want me to give you a motion to recommend?
Yeah, let's do that if you want to.
First thing first, I'll recommend a motion to recommend this to the full board.
Second.
Proper motion and a second. Let's then go to any questions that we have. If we, do anyone have any?
No questions, Eric?
Sorry, Casey.
No questions. We've talked about it quite a bit, so no questions. Thank you, all of you, for putting it together. You're right, we did a lot of heavy lifting last year, so this year was fairly straightforward. One thing I would love to see, and it's not really budget, it's more capital, but I would really love to know, growth and pressure, from a state perspective and all that is not a Franklin issue alone. I'd be really curious what other municipalities across the state are being as aggressive as we are in capital expenditure relative to size and property tax and all that as this is. I mean, I'd just be really curious to see.
Yeah, I'm not sure if we can track that down completely, but I think your
Yeah.
instinct is right. It's pretty darn aggressive, but only doing it with 34% in the
Okay.
debt service
No
range
doubt.
too. So I think we tried to hit the right balance of delivering those projects in as timely a manner as we can, but not overburdening ourselves
Yeah.
in terms of debt. So that's why the city has shown a lot of forethought in developing a pretty sophisticated impact fee system so that development helps pay its way. And that gets factored in to building those capital projects out. It also does help expedite project delivery. What's kind of hidden is all the improvements that happen in conjunction with those impact fees as development happens at the same time. So, roads are widened, intersections are improved. Those happen because they can offset impact fees by building those improvements themselves. So that doesn't fully get captured in those numbers we talk about too, but you see that, I think, paying off, and that's why we're able to deliver more and focus on those. So sometimes folks question what we're getting done and what's happening, and it never happens fast enough
Right.
for any of us, but we are putting really impactful projects on the table and delivering on them. Folks, projects like McEwen and Pearl Park and those improvements have been talked about for years, and they're
Yeah.
being built right now.
Well, and two things I'll say. One is the relevance back to the budget is it's not impacting service delivery. We're doing $500 million worth of infrastructure projects, and it's not impacting service delivery. I'm looking at Nate, and he just spent a quarter delivering amazing service
Yeah.
to our community,
Yeah.
and yet we're out there building and helping the community too.
In
So,
fact, we're enhancing
Enhancing,
operations. We're adding
absolutely
positions
so.
in key places.
Yeah.
Being conservative there too, but
Yeah.
making sure we're responding to the needs of a growing community.
Yeah, why we're investing in it too, yeah. And I'll just say, we've had this delegation from Ireland here, and as I've driven them around town all morning and talking about all of the parkland that we're investing in and all of the growth, their eyeballs are gigantic.
Yeah, that was the first thing they said when they walked in here.
Yeah, they.
Your parks are amazing.
He thought I was throwing around money like confetti, but not necessarily in a bad way, but just couldn't believe all that we were doing and all that we were accomplishing. And so they have growth problems just like everybody else, and was amazed at all that we were accomplishing. So anyway, thank you for the budget.
Good to hear. I was remiss in mentioning this. When we look at the program enhancements that were brought forward, and the board weighed in on their priorities, we were able to fund 9 of your top 10 and 11 of your top 15 program enhancements through the budget that you see today. And that's a budget that has, no increase in taxes and really holds the line on the guidance you provided us a year ago. So I'm proud that we've been able to meet those key priorities that our departments identified, that you identified, and that gives us a good feeling as we move into the new year.
Any other questions or comments? I do have one. You made a statement a while ago that was interesting because we don't actually capture, I don't guess we do, in lieu of the road impact fees. If somebody does something and they don't necessarily pay the road impact fee, that does not show up as value, does it?
It doesn't show up in your CIP. We do track it.
Okay.
In fact, I can show you, there's a presentation that Walter Denton's doing about development, and he's got a slide that talks about improvements that have been funded by development.
Okay.
About growth and development. And so we've got our CIP, but we've also got the components that get contributed directly and then accepted by the city. And I just don't have that number on top of my head. So, but we'll share that back out to you so you can see that order of magnitude.
All right. Any other questions or comments? Then let's go to the next item, which is,
Do we need?
we do have the first and the motion and a second. Let's do a roll call vote on that. Alderman Peterson, how do you vote?
Yes.
Alderman Brown, how do you vote?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes on that also.
So the next several items are other actions that will need to be taken in conjunction with the budget I've just presented to you. And Michael's going to walk through these item by item.
Ordinance 2026-11 is your annual ordinance establishing a municipal property tax levy for the fiscal year beginning June 1st. This is a state requirement that you must affirmatively set your tax rate on an annual basis. The rate that is being proposed is .296 cents per $100 of assessed value, which leaves it the exact same as the current year.
So are we just going to recommend this to the board?
Yeah, we'll do it, we'll do it one at a time then. Let's just do that
Yep.
then. We've heard Michael's comments as far as the tax rate being .296. I would entertain a motion that we present that rate to the full board.
So moved.
Second?
Proper motion and second. Let's do a roll call vote on that. Alderman Peterson, how do you vote?
Yes.
Alderman Brown, how do you vote?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes on that also. All right, Michael, next.
Item 7 is ordinance 2026-08, an ordinance to amend Appendix A of the Comprehensive Fees and Penalties for Refuse and Trash Disposal. This ordinance would set 2 years of rates. The recommendation is to follow an increase of $1 for residential collection from $33 to $34 in 2026, and that would go up $2 in fiscal 2028 to $36 per month. It also recommends transfer station increases from $70 to $75 a ton in the first year and $77.50, thank you, in the next year. The 5-year rate plan will be the next item to vote on. But ordinance 2026-08 proposes setting 2 years' worth of sanitation rates and transfer station collection fees.
This is similar to what we've done for, 18 years in the water and sewer realm, where we work off a 5-year plan and then we have you adopt rates in a 2 or 3 year window, but we keep updating that 5-year plan in conjunction with that. But it helps you just have a consistent, broader framework so you know, we're a fan of doing small, consistent rate increases, not large, big steps in a single year. And this helps get the costs manageable, but also gives us a good planning tool.
And I would be remiss, you are presented with 5 options when this went in front of the Board of
Right.
Mayor and Aldermen. This is option 5 that would build in these rate increases as Eric has outlined them in his previous presentation, but sets the capital investment amount on an annual basis at a cap for budgeted planning purposes of $1 million.
Great.
Any questions of Michael or Eric? Then I will consider a motion to approve draft ordinance 2026-08. And I'll not read the rest of that caption. You just listen to Michael make his speech as far as the rates are going up a little bit.
We're talking option 5.
I'll move to recommend it to the board.
Second?
Proper motion to second. Let's do a roll call vote on that. Alderman Peterson, how do you vote?
Yes.
And Alderman Brown, how do you vote?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes on that, okay. Now, we're ready for item 8, Michael?
Part and parcel with the ordinance actually raising rates is a 5-year plan. That is Resolution 2026-45, a resolution to adopt a 5-year plan for the Sanitation and Environmental Services Department. As Eric just indicated, what we are trying to do is put all of your business type activities on a similar path. So water and sewer, sanitation, stormwater, you would have 5-year plans that would be reviewed every 2 to 3 years, and you would approve 2 years' worth of rates, which allows for consistency in budgeting and, more importantly, consistency for the consumers of the service to know where those fees will be going.
Any questions? Then I will consider a motion to approve draft ordinance 2026-45 to the full, and with a recommendation to the full board coming with approval from the committee.
So moved.
Proper motion to a second.
Second?
Alderman Peterson, how do you vote?
Yes.
And Alderman Brown, how do you vote?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes on that. Okay, let's go then to item 9. Consideration of draft ordinance 2026-12, an ordinance to amend Appendix A, comprehensive fees and penalties, Chapter 23, stormwater management. Michael, you up again.
Ordinance 2026-12 is proposing 2 years' worth of rate increases for the first time since 2018 to the Stormwater Fund. This would take the ERU, or equivalent residential unit base rate, from $3.83 to $5 and Sky, give me a head nod, 94? Hey, I actually read the briefing. $5.94. It would have a very small increase to about $6.10, $6.18 in fiscal '28. You'll be asked to approve a 5-year rate increase in the next resolution. This is designed to make the fund, A, self-sufficient, and by that we mean able to handle any equipment purchases and existing operations for the 22 individuals which are in streets and engineering in the Stormwater Fund. As a reminder, this fee is assessed, you have an equivalent residential unit of roughly 3,300 square feet of pervious surface area, which the fee is based on. That is the commercial rate. So when you set the rate, you're setting a base rate that commercial properties pay. Small residential lots are at 75%. Large residential lots are 120%. Of that, what we are proposing, $5.94 cent rate. So that is how that calculation works. Mr. Chairman.
Any questions?
No.
Then I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Proper motion to a second.
Second.
All in favor indicate by saying aye. Whoop, let's do a roll call. You know, we didn't used to do this. No, we didn't used to.
Yeah.
Used to, you could do a motion, all in favor, say aye. But now,
It's in your charter.
He's in the charter now.
well,
think we discovered it around
We
COVID
didn't go
time.
by the charter for about 30 years.
We shouldn't have such a efficient staff.
Proper motion to a second and all in, Ann Peterson, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Brown, how do you vote?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes to that also. Yeah, it's hard to break that habit. Michael, are you up next again?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Item 10 is consideration of draft resolution 2026-46, which will adopt a 5-year rate plan for the Stormwater Fund. Similar to what I just said on sanitation, this would propose setting rates for giving you guidance for 5 years. We would examine this in 2 to 3 years. And the rates for the first 2 years are exactly what you just voted in ordinance 2026-12.
Any questions? Then I'll entertain a motion for approval and recommend that item be sent to the full board.
So moved.
Proper motion to a second.
Second.
Mrs. Peterson, how do you vote?
Yes.
And Mr. Brown, how do you vote?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes also on that. Michael, you up again?
This next one's going to be a team effort.
All
So
right.
ordinance 2026-13 is an ordinance to amend Municipal Code Title 12, Chapter 1 and Appendix A, comprehensive fees and penalties regarding building and utility codes. So we have a distinguished panel from BNS here.
We sure do.
Gentlemen, I don't know who would like to take points on this. Alex and Alex look like they're the ones. We have a very small presentation for you to go through this because this has not been formally presented in any public meeting yet. We had hoped to last week at Development Services, but we were unable to do so. So this is an opportunity for the folks at home and all of you to hear it, and this will be on future meetings and first reading as well at the meeting of May 26th. So, gentlemen, take it away.
I get to tell Ellis, push that button.
Good afternoon. So as Michael stated, as we start to evaluate our services, specifically plan review services that we provide, we have to look to see if what we're charging is meeting the service we're delivering. Obviously, we're not going to get to a point to where that fee will pay for all of our services. So in that process, we look to see what makes sense and what we could do to close that gap a little bit, because currently we're collecting 10% of review fees compared to the service we're providing based on the cost of service. So in that evaluation, we took a look at 3 different fees that we're presenting to you today. The current non-residential plan review fee, it starts out at $50 flat, and that's for 100,000 in valuation. Anything above that has an additional valuation based on the additional cost times 0.005, and that's added back to the $50 to get a plan review fee amount. We're proposing a starting from 50 to a starting point of 250 just for non-residential projects. Also, for residential projects, which we've never charged a plan review fee for residential projects, In this, we're only proposing for new construction, 2,000 square feet or greater, for $100 for a plan review fee. Also, fire protection fee, $50 per fire protection plan review that comes in. So it's a minimal increase, gets us to about a 30% cost to service gap. And we can go through the next slide that kind of looks at how we got to those numbers, if you would like.
So what we have here is a cost of service study that I would be remiss if I don't go ahead and say thank you to Catherine Harrelson who put this together. What we have here is kind of two different scenarios presented based on the number of staff and their overall costs. With a breakdown, you can see of cost per project, and then you can also even break it down to cost per review cycle. So our cost per project for non-residential overall comes out to about that $1,650 number. Residential at about $375 per project, and fire protection of, if I can read this from here, $161.
There you go.
Thank you. Breaking that down even further to the cost per review cycle, our non-residential equates to about $524, residential being $203 per review cycle, and fire protection at $91 roughly. So going on from there, we can then take and extrapolate that cost of service to the estimated revenues and implications that come from these proposed fees. For non-residential, at the average fee paid of $255, with this increase and the number of projects being 450 on average per year, estimated revenue of $114,000. Sorry, that was current. Proposed increasing from $114,000 estimated to $470,000 annually, with the difference of $355,000. Residential being a brand new fee and the number of projects being roughly $200, we're looking at about $20,000 worth of revenue per year. And fire protection also being new, coming up to a $21,000 revenue.
And I failed to mention, as part of our municipal code, there's already a codified language for the third plan review fee and beyond. We would charge 50% of the initial plan review fee for non-residential projects. We have never implemented that fee based on subjectivity and so forth. Is the city asking for something, or is the applicant deficient in their plans they've submitted? So that is part of this conversation as well. The new state law that will be in effect January 1st of '27 may affect our ability to do that. We're still evaluating that piece right now.
And I would add a few closing items. Number one, the $400,000 estimate you saw on the screen, we've been conservative. We're only taking several hundred thousand for revenue estimates. Anytime you increase fees, you don't know exactly how it's going to be impacted. Second, the residential review fee was certainly something we talked about in staff, and we wanted to balance, the ability of individuals who simply want to come in and modify a deck or, do something internally. If you've been a member of the city of Franklin and you pay your taxes, you should get some degree of amount from those taxes, separate from if you're adding on a second garage. That's an entirely new thing. The other thing I would say regarding the resubmittal fees, Alderman Brown and I serve in the Development Services Advisory Commission, and we have talked throughout the years about the need to make sure that we try to encourage the fewest amount of resubmittals as possible. That is a waste of staff time, it is a waste of the construction industry's time, and so the ability to encourage the right submittal the first time is something that's very important for the efficiency and bottom lines for everyone. So initiating this is also designed to try to encourage that. And we are happy, if you have any questions regarding ordinance 2026-13.
Alderman Brown? Alderman Peterson? I guess, the rate now is, what, $50 for 2,000 or under 2,000 square feet? Is that what you were saying just then?
No, sir, for residential, we've never charged a review fee.
Okay,
That would be, if this was approved, would be a $100 plan review fee only for new construction residential, 2,000 square feet home or above. The 50 to 250 increase would be solely on non-residential projects.
and an example of that,
Restaurant build-out
Right.
or new commercial space.
Right. Yeah. Any restaurant, office, apartment building, anything that's not single-family new construction, basically.
what would the city hall's fee be?
A few $1,000s. Yeah.
That's why we had to hurry up and get.
Better get that roof over before
Yeah, yeah.
beginning of next year.
Consider it residential because we all live there.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah, yeah.
Do you spend more hours there than my house?
Any questions or comments? Michael, do we need what is that? Do we need an motion to recommend that to the full board, or are we?
We
are you
would
with- is that what you're
sure,
going
we would
with
sure
now?
appreciate it.
Huh?
We would sure appreciate it.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Then I'll entertain a motion to recommend that, those rates to the full, to the increases and changes to the full board coming from the committee then.
So moved.
Second.
Let's do a roll call vote on that. Alderman Peterson, how do you vote?
Yes.
Alderman Brown, how do you vote?
Yes.
And the chair votes also yes. Thank you, fellas. Appreciate it. A lot of work goes into that. We don't sometimes see the amount of work that goes into
Good point.
what we're looking at here. All right. Okay, Michael, are you again? Yeah, you're up next.
One last time, draft resolution 2026-41 is an ordinance for the Board of Mayor and Aldermen to adopt the estimate of revenues and expenditures for the Water and Sanitary Sewer Utility Fund for the fiscal year starting July 1st of 2026. This is your annual belt and suspenders resolution. When we submit the enterprise fund budget to the state, it's always good to approve that in a separate resolution as well as part of the annual operating budget. Back in the day, we used to approve separate budgets. We approved a water utility budget at a different time of year. We believe that you want to see all funds at the same time to know how much does the city cost to run, but you still want to make sure you've got that resolution that we can point to saying, this is the budget just for that activity. So the resolution simply asks that you approve kind of what you've already approved in the budget ordinance, but call it out. Mr. Chairman.
Let's get a motion on the floor for that first, and then if there's any questions, I'll entertain a motion to approve a draft resolution 2026-41, and then open it up for any questions that anyone has.
So moved.
Second.
Proper motion. Michael, we did used to separate those, didn't we?
Yes, sir.
'Cause I didn't-
Usually it was done during the summer months. You
Yes.
get through the budget, and then the water management budget would be presented 50 or 60 pages and kind of walk through everything. Over time, our budget philosophy has shifted that it takes a little more time in March for y'all to review, but having this be part of the total document gets you that snapshot that it costs $273.4 million to operate the city of Franklin.
Any questions or comments? If I asked for a motion for that, Jim?
Yes,
I
you have
did,
already.
didn't I? Then Alderman Peterson, how do you vote?
Yes.
Alderman Brown, how do you vote?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes also on that. Okay, Michael? Thank you. Thank you.
And now?
It's enough?
Make these extremely long at the board meeting.
We'll try to lengthen the titles for you a little bit.
All right, let's go to monthly reports. Margaret, you're up.
This does not require a motion to anything. This is just informative. But I just wanted to bring two things to light. Local sales tax. We are reporting on February. February is usually our lowest month for sales tax collection. It was over $5 million for this year. So we've actually had over $5 million every month since July 1.
Largest February ever.
It was the largest February ever. Yes, it was actually larger than January, if you look back.
That's amazing.
It was, and it was,
I think it was 5,002,000.
it was $200,000 larger than January, so.
Pent-up ice storm energy.
Yep.
Oh, wow. No, I hadn't thought about that, but
But it
yes.
easily could be.
Yes.
Well, chainsaws,
Chainsaws,
generators.
generators.
The other item that I'd like to just point out is hotel motel. We are year over year increase from FY '25 at 2.6%. So hotel motel is holding its own as well.
Which is good because a year ago, we were down a little
down.
bit. So it's good to see that coming back up. January and February were particularly stronger than expected.
Yes.
So there's some good trend there. And I think actually the March data that we just saw from the CVB was the strongest March they've ever had.
Oh, my. That is impressive.
Great to hear.
Any other questions or comments of Margaret? If we had Brandy
Bring
here,
good news anytime you want.
yeah, we had Brandy here, we'd be ready to adjourn, wouldn't we? Anything else to come before the committee? If not, then I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Proper motion to a second.
Second.
Now, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, we are opposed.